Hello, Giants fans, and welcome to a new edition of the Valentine's Views podcast here on Big Blue View Radio, part of your SB Nation family of podcasts. Please like, share, and subscribe if you're watching us on YouTube, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts across the Big Blue View Radio network. All right, with your Giants coming back from their Week 13 bye, getting ready to face the Green Bay Packers on Monday Night Football this week. Here to help me assess the state of the New York Giants is Patricia Traina, and I appreciate Patti hopping on today. Patti's playing a little bit hurt this week, so we appreciate Patti getting to the starting line here.
Yeah, I'm hurting, but you know what? The show must go on, as they say, and here I am. And just go easy on me. That's all I ask.
Even if Patti, even if you're hurting a little bit because of self-inflicted wounds from having too much fun last week.
Hey, listen, I deserve it, man. I haven't had fun like that, and I can't tell you how long. So
yeah, we won't pick on you too much about your choice of bands to go
you'll
to go
pick
watch.
on me, and I'm waiting for it, Ed.
You're waiting for me to mention that you went tromping around watching Kiss last week.
Hey, it's not a secret.
No,
if you were on
it's
my
not.
Instagram account, you knew it. So
What can I tell you? What can I tell you? Hey, different strokes for different folks. I'll take Springsteen tickets if anybody wants to give them to me anytime.
I
So
would take that too. I would
yeah,
definitely take that for sure.
there you go. There you go. Anyway, Patti, let's talk about football. Let's talk about the New York Giants and 4-8 at the bye. That we talked to Giants players on Monday, and they made reference to December football and having a lot to play for and having everything still in front of them if they take care of business on a week-to-week basis. But I don't know about you, but for me, that's a lot of, players trying to convince themselves that these games are still important and helping motivate themselves because the playoffs aren't happening for this team.
Yeah, I mean, mathematically they're still alive. So you never say never, but I think if we were betting people, if you were a betting man, if I were a betting woman, we probably could say the Giants aren't making the postseason.
We wouldn't make any money off that bet either, Patti.
We might, not a lot, but but that being said, it's, and I hate this expression, but I think it's applicable here. At this point, the players are playing for pride. You know, some guys won't be here next year, so they're trying to put the best film possible out there for their next team. Some guys may be in line for promotions next year, those that will be back here next year. So they're trying to show the coaches that, hey, we're still dialed in and locked in. So I could see where there's something for them to play for. I know that sounds like loser speak, but I can kind of see, the motivation, if you will, for some of these guys.
Absolutely. And Patti, we have to talk about what I want to talk about as we get through the show is some of the guys on this roster who have a lot to play for, some of those guys who still have a lot to prove. And I think we need to start with the quarterback situation. And when I think about it, it's a decision that Brian Daboll has to make. Does he go with Tommy DeVito, 2 wins in a row? He has everybody excited. He's got the fan base fired up. He's got people, making nicknames for him and sandwiches named after himself. And, a gazillion people standing in line to get his autograph and all of that. There you go. There you go. But, but he's still an undrafted free agent rookie. And there's got to be a ceiling. Linsanity only lasted for so long. And you wonder if this DeVito craze is going to do the same thing. Tyrod Taylor is a free agent at the end of this year. Don't know if the Giants are going to bring him back or not. Haven't talked to Tyrod to know if he even wants to play beyond this year. But when you think about it, they both have things to play for. They both have things to prove. And I don't know which way the Giants are going to go. If it's you making this decision, what's more important? Finding out what Tommy DeVito can do, finding out if he can be part of your quarterback room going forward, or using Tyrod Taylor's experience to maybe give the rest of your roster the best chance to show what it can do.
I've gone back and forth on this. Initially, I was all Team DeVito. I said he's done nothing to lose the job. But in having thought about it, I've been spending a lot of time on trains, so I've had time to think about this, believe it or not. Um, Look, Tommy DeVito, all this experience he's gotten this year is gravy on top of the chicken cutlet. And I promise that's the last chicken cutlet joke I'll make.
Oh,
I
there
promise
you
you.
go. Go for it.
So this is experience that nobody was really counting on him getting. Nobody anticipated that Daniel Jones would go down or that Tyrod Taylor would go down. So this is all experience that he can use for next year. There are still limitations to his game. With him, it's either throw deep or take a sack, basically. There's no in between with him. There's still a question of, is he trusting what he sees? Because he's holding on to the ball too long. So, this experience, I think, and what he has shown in the opportunities, he has shown that he can be part of the room next year. Now, is he a QB2? Not quite. Does he have the potential to be a QB2 next year with more development? Possibly. Is he a QB1? No, I'm not going to go that far. With Tyrod has the experience. He's seen things. He's a little bit more comfortable back there, better decision maker. I think if you're the Giants and you want to cling to that less than 1% chance of you getting into the playoffs, which we all know is probably unrealistic, but try telling that to the athletes. I think maybe you say to yourself, okay, listen, Tommy, you did a great job for us. We want to move ahead. We want to, give ourselves an opportunity to, extend this a little bit. We're going to go with Tyrod.
Yeah, I hear you, and it's difficult. It's not an easy decision for Brian Daboll, and general managers and coaches will always tell you that they have to consider how every decision that they make will play in the locker room. And I want to ask you, we were both on Zoom call on Monday with several of the Giants players. We didn't have access to them in person. We will as the week goes along. We had a chance to talk to two of the veteran offensive players, and it's not a full sampling of the room. But we talked to Darius Slayton, we talked to Andrew Thomas. And am I reading too much into it? Neither one of those guys would say, I want Tyrod or I want Tommy. And of course, they're not going to say that to us. But am I reading too much into it when I look at the fact that the first thing both of those guys mentioned in being asked about those two quarterbacks, the first thing they both mentioned was Tyrod Taylor's experience? Am I reading too much into that to think that maybe there's a preference in the locker room for Tyrod to play?
It is a small sample size, but yeah, I think you're spot on with your interpretation. It's nothing personal against Tommy, who has done a good job of what has been asked of him. His game, as I mentioned, still a little bit limited, and I think these guys realize that. Doesn't mean that they hate him, doesn't mean that they want to throw him out by the curb. It's just that, look, if you're going to go through the entire week to prepare yourself to be put through the ringer and be sore the next day, you want to come out with something to show for it. And you want to know that you have the best possible personnel, the best possible game plan, the best possible, circumstances to make sure that you come out on top. And the more I think about it, I think Tyrod gives them that opportunity.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you, Patty. And I'm thinking about this from the perspective of the Giants' often criticized, deservedly maligned offensive line this year. When I look at it, that offensive line, for me, under DeVito, and I've gone back and forth on it like you have, and I can see both sides of the argument. If I'm an offensive lineman, though, I'm thinking for the last 3 or 4 weeks, Tommy DeVito has made me look worse than I actually am.
Mm.
All right, because a lot of what's gone on with the breakdown, with the supposed breakdowns in pass protection, have been more about the quarterback not being able to get the ball out of his hands. As many good plays as he's made, there's too many times when he doesn't get the ball out of his hands when he needs to. And if I'm an offensive lineman, I'm thinking Tyrod Taylor gives me a better opportunity to look like the player that I think I am.
Mhm.
And
Yeah,
I think that's a big part of it is you have to consider the rest of the guys in the room and not just the future of who your backup or your number 3 quarterback is going to be. You have to consider allowing the entire room to function at its best.
yeah, I think that's a good point. You don't want to be made to look foolish. And everybody is screaming about the offensive line. And that doesn't mean that the offensive line is blameless. They have had their breakdowns and their issues. But when your quarterback is holding the ball for longer than 2.5 seconds and he's approaching 3 seconds, that's going to make you as an offensive lineman look bad. It's going to frustrate you. Something's going to break down. So, again, when you're an athlete, I think you want to have the best possible circumstances, the best personnel around you. And look, Tommy DeVito has played well with what he's been asked to do. He still has a lot of room to grow. And like I said, this is all gravy for him, this experience that he's getting. This wasn't meant to be. It just so happens that it happened. And now he's going to be ahead of where he would have been this time next year.
Absolutely. Patty, let's talk about some of the other players who have a lot to play for the remainder of the season. All of the players have, they're trying to put the best film on the best film out there that they can. They're trying to further their careers the best that they can. But when you look at it, the Giants have a lot of decisions to make when it comes to the offseason. And there are a lot of players who we don't know if they're going to be back next year. We don't know whether they're going to be starters or reserves or what position they might play. So let's talk about a few of the guys that the Giants have to make decisions about. Top of that list is Evan Neal.
Mm.
So we talked about him on your show as well. And let me put it to you this way. In your mind, we know that Joe Shane during his bye-week press conference supported the idea that Evan Neal can still be a right tackle, which I think he has to at this point in the year with games to play still. We don't know we don't know what the long-range plan is for next year. In your mind, has the sand already run out of the hourglass on the idea that Evan Neal can be a right tackle? Or do we need to see more from him the rest of this year if he can get out on the field before the Giants can make that decision?
Well, you can lean on the injury excuse and all the time he missed. But when he was on the field, did we really see much of an improvement from last year? I don't think we did. So, listen, I get why Joe Shane said, we still believe he could be a right tackle. I get it. You're not going to say, oh, we're giving up on him. That's going to be counterproductive. That being said, excuse me, if you're the Giants, you go back. Joe Shane says, I saw what he did at Alabama. Well, go back. Correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't he also play left guard at
Yes.
Alabama? Go back
Yes,
and look
he
at the
did. Mhm.
entire body of work. Where was he at his best? Where does his skill set fit the best? Over on Giants Country, we had Coach Gene Clemens doing a breakdown of Evan Neal's film, and he is convinced that Evan Neal would make a really good left guard, pairing up with Andrew Thomas on that side. And I tend to agree based on the skill set and based on, just what we've seen from Evan Neal at right tackle, because this guy cannot function on an island.
No, I saw the piece that Gene did on Giants Country, and one of the points that Gene made was that he thinks that Neil simply looked more comfortable on the left side than he did on the right side. And I can understand that. What I have said to people who have asked me about this over and over at Big Blue View is you signed Justin Pugh for a reason for this year. And what I've said is if you're going to move him to guard, I think you move him at least initially to right guard if you're going to play him there this year, for the simple reason that you're asking him on the fly to switch sides again. So, and plus you've got Justin Pugh, and that's the position you signed Justin Pugh to play. So I don't think you make that move all the way across the line this year. I think that's when you go into the offseason and say, Evan, we think you're better suited on the left side. The opening that we have is at guard. That's where we're going to put you. I watched the Sunday night football game this week, 49ers and Chiefs. And Trent Williams is a phenomenal left tackle, best in the business for a lot of years. Andrew Thomas is not that far off, but you watch the left side of that 49ers offensive line with Williams and Aaron Banks at left guard, and you think, boy, wouldn't it be nice to have a big, strong, dominant left guard next to Andrew Thomas to and really just have one side of your line, with John Michael Schmitz, who looks like he's going to be a quality center. You've got one side of your line basically taken care of if Evan Neal can play that spot and do it well. And that's what you would hope for. But so it's interesting. I'm just not sure you make that move right now.
Yeah, I think you have to play out the string here. I mean, look, coming off the bye, you're not going to make wholesale changes, but it's something I think you have to think about moving into the off season as you plan. Okay, what do we need at this position? What do we need at that position, and so forth. I don't anticipate it being done now, as far as making any moves, but you have to start thinking about it because you better have a plan when you go into the off season for free agency, for the draft and whatnot. And that you can start doing now, obviously.
Well, you can't go into year 3 with Evan Neal and put him at a position you're not sure he can play. And
Hmm.
and I get killed for this by some people at Big Blue View. I get killed for this by some people who think that I'm just a pure Jerry Reese hater. All right. But it's the same situation, Patty. It's really the same situation that the Giants were in that we with Eric Flowers and with Jerry Reese. Jerry drafted Eric Flowers to be a left tackle. And I think we all saw quickly that Eric Flowers couldn't be a left tackle in the NFL. Maybe he could be a right tackle. Maybe he could be a guard. A lot of people told me he couldn't be a guard because he was too big and played too upright. But he had a couple of good years playing guard eventually. But Eric Flowers stayed at left tackle for 3 years. He stayed at
Mm.
left tackle until Jerry Reese wasn't the GM anymore. And I don't want to see Joe Shane be stubborn about it and say I drafted this guy number 7 to play right tackle and he's going to stay there because that's what I drafted him to do. That's that's a mistake. That's not good work by the GM. That's being stubborn and trying to prove yourself right. So I hope that's not part of the equation.
Yeah, I'm with you. Look, at this point, you drafted the kid, what, seventh overall? You just want him to be good, whether it's at
Right.
guard or tackle. You just want to get some kind of return on your investment from him.
Mhm.
There's nothing wrong with, okay, he didn't work out as a tackle. We move him inside the guard. If he goes on and becomes an all pro guard, is anybody going to really complain? Is anybody going to really have a problem with that?
Nope.
I would think no.
Nope, not at all. Patty, I know you're playing hurt here, and I don't want to keep you for too long. I just want to ask you, when you think about the next 5 games, we've talked about quarterback, we've talked about Neal, who's the real obvious guy who's got some things to prove. Who for you are just a couple of the other players who you think, have a lot to prove in terms of whether they have futures with the Giants or not?
Mm. Uh Counting the unrestricted free agents to be, I would say maybe Xavier McKinney still needs to prove that
Yeah,
he can do.
I wonder if McKinney has the way he's played the last 2 or 3 weeks. I wonder if he's already proved it or if he needs to show the rest
I
of the
think he needs
way
to show a little bit more
because
because I
he's
think
going to want big money.
yeah, well, he's gonna have to justify it. I mean, can we say that
Mhm.
he's justified it?
Not yet. I mean,
Right,
he showed the 2 weeks before the bye that he's capable of it. But you
right.
can't pay a guy off of 2 weeks.
No.
So I get it.
So, yeah, McKinney would be one. Let me see who else off the
Let me
top of my head.
let me throw a name at you and see what you Adoree how about Adoree Jackson?
I don't think Adori's coming back next year. I'd be surprised.
Yeah, I don't either, but I wonder if he can, even if he's not back, they're big games for Adoree because they're contract games,
True, true.
you know.
So yeah, I would be surprised if Adori's back. Certainly he's playing for his next contract, but you kind of get the impression they want to go with the youth movement, Deontay
Mhm.
Banks and maybe Trey Hawkins at cornerback moving forward, and then bring in another young cornerback to build up that depth. Let me just go down the line here. Who else might be playing? You can look at some veterans, but I don't think they're going to be
What about
back.
I'll just throw one more name at you for a thought. Isaiah Hodgins, who I think is still a
Yes,
restricted free agent, but hasn't had the year that he had last year and a half
yeah.
a season. He hasn't really had that kind of impact.
Yeah, I think Hodgins for sure. Um, he's kind of fizzled out after being like, the it child, if you will, last year.
Yeah,
Um,
it was curious to me, Patty, just a quick comment on Hodgins. I think we started to see it in training camp and in the preseason that he was pushed down the line a little bit. He was playing more preseason snaps than I would have thought of for a guy that you might have thought entering the season was, a starting wide receiver, if not the number 1 wide receiver. So it was curious right from the beginning, the situation with Hodgins, but I think he's got a lot to prove.
yeah, I think so too, because you look at next year at the receivers, Hyatt's gonna be locked in. Slayton's in year 2 of a 2-year deal, so and there's been some talk about whether he might be back or not. Shepard's gonna be gone. Who am I missing?
Wandale's
Wandale will
locked
be
in.
here.
Mhm.
Who's your big guy?
Right.
Who's your big guy?
Right now it's Hodgins if he stays.
Exactly. Or you draft someone. And oh, by the way, can we say that the Giants have a number 1 receiver on their roster? I don't think they
No.
do. Do they need one? Uh-huh.
Well, especially since I think we've seen that Darren Waller is still a good player,
Mhm.
but he's maybe not the guy that he was 3 or 4 years ago with the Raiders. And we've also seen that his health issues aren't going to go away. The fact that you can't be certain, from week to week, how many times he's going to make the starting line. As much as we all were excited about his presence and what he can do when he's fully healthy and all of that, it doesn't help if you can't make the starting line.
Yeah.
So they still need that guy who who draws attention, who draws 2 bodies, every time he lines up.
You're right. And, that was missing. And Shane last year, if you remember correctly, excuse me, he downplayed it. He said, "Oh, there's a lot of number one receivers sitting home." Uh, you don't think that for a moment that he wouldn't give his eye teeth to get a number one receiver
Oh,
that can stretch
absolutely.
the field? So
Absolutely, he would. All right, Patty, I appreciate your hanging in there and getting through the show here. You're a trooper, and I tried not to give you too much grief.
that's appreciated. So all those times on my show, I said I was going to throw you in jail. You just got to get out of jail for free card.
All right. Well, we'll see how long it is before I wreck that.
I give you 2 days.
uh, that depends on when I see you again, Patty.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Giants fans, thank you as always for listening. Please stay safe out there. Take care of each other, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.